Dream warning: spirits, temptation, and fear. Please interpret this dream. The dream started, I was in some forest at night, don't know where I was or why I'm there, but all I did know was a gorgeous, sexy woman was standing there. Her attraction was so stimulating. I started to kiss her and hold her body close to mine. Our bodies start to get heated the more I kiss and caress. She started taking my clothes off as I took her clothes off also. We dropped down to the ground. The ground started to turn into a floor, the walls start to rise around me, and the ceiling was built right over my head, and church benches start to appear in this building. I stood up trying to make sense of it all. Then I realized I was standing in the sanctuary naked at my church. I was struck with fear. Inside the church was so black and dark. A voice came to me inside the church,
saying if you don't want to see spirits of the saints in the church sitting in benches, you better make your way out.
At that time, I had a great fear of the dead, so I looked for the girl that was with me, but she disappeared. I was more frightened because I know I'm by myself in this black dark church. So, I start walking naked across the sanctuary, going toward the front of the church, which had a door to get out. I made it to the door and opened it to realize it was daytime on the outside of the door, but the inside was black. The sanctuary was dark. On the left was the kitchen in the church, and on the right was the way out. No longer naked, I looked on the left, looking into the kitchen, and saw old man sitting in a chair inside the kitchen. But from a distance he looked very familiar. So I started walking towards the kitchen to see who this man was. As I got up on him, I realized it was my grandfather. But I went in rage with anger because my grandfather been dead for 3 years. I screamed at the old man, saying, "Who are you?" But he was not saying nothing, so I turned around and ran out the kitchen and out the church. Outside the church I ran into a childhood friend. I told him somebody is playing like they my grandfather, come with me and see. So we ran back into the church, running with vigor to the kitchen, and the old man was not there. So my childhood friend looked at me crazy and walked off. I walked behind him and telling him I know what I saw, but he walked out to church. I looked back towards the kitchen, the old man was in there just like before. I ran back in there again and said, "Who are you?" with anger. But he did not say anything, so I ran out the kitchen and out to church. Outside there was a neighborhood preacher I knew very well, and I told him my situation and what was going on in the kitchen. He said, "Let's go check it out," so we ran into the church and back in the kitchen just to see the old man was not there. I told the preacher, he was there. He looked at me in disbelief, shook his head, and walked out the kitchen and church. With frustration and anger, I walked out the kitchen going toward the church door. On the way out, I looked back toward the kitchen and there he was. I ran back into the kitchen with vigor and anger grinding my teeth, snatched the old man out the chair he was sitting and said, "You're not my grandfather. My grandfather is dead. Who is the hell is you?" The old man's head fell back and tears ran down his face, but the tears was blood. I went into shock and screamed till I woke up. So interpret this dream. If you can't, just give me your opinion or tell me how it makes you feel. When you see this video, maybe you had a similar experience with a dream like this. I love to hear about it. Thank you for taking the time to see one of my deepest thoughts within my soul. I'm still trying to figure it out, and that was years ago.
Commentator 1 mentioned that nudity highlights sin.
Blogman replied, thanking them for their comment. He stated he had heard that perspective before, but in his dream, it only focused on him being naked in the sanctuary while he was alone. The girl who had been with him had vanished. Once he left the sanctuary, the dream no longer highlighted nudity.
Commentator 2 suggested that it might symbolize his struggles with life and goals, proposing that he should concentrate on the goal rather than the situation. They added that his grandfather is a saint, and that his nudity represents shedding the shame of the flesh, like lust, and asked if he was married, hinting he might have been in the dark about this.
Blogman responded, saying he was a young man at the time and wasn't married, pointing out that there were no sexual activities in the dream, so he didn't see where sin could apply. He noted that being married doesn't automatically protect one from sin, as it depends on individual perspective and definitions.
Commentator 3 suggested it might mean putting on the full armor while in church and in the world.
Blogman remarked that the darkness was within the church while the light was outside.
Commentator 4 stated that what seemed to be spiritual might actually be darkness, arguing that some believe nudity is inherently sinful, which is not necessarily true. They referenced Adam and Eve, who were naked in the Bible before sin entered the world.
Commentator 5 said the forest and seductive woman desire and instincts forest at night represents the unknown parts of your subconscious, mystery, confusion, and being lost in your inner world. The woman desire temptation. Her intense attraction symbolizes raw desire, passion, or even an aspect of yourself that seeks connection or escape through physical pleasure. The sexual tension escalating represents being drawn deeply into primal instincts. Transformation into the church, guilt, morality, confinement. As the ground morphs into a church sanctuary, it's like your subconscious is confronting you with guilt or moral judgment. Being naked in the church symbolizes vulnerability, exposure, and perhaps a fear of being judged or caught in moral conflict. The darkness inside the church, contrasted with daylight outside, suggests inner repression, hidden fears, or unresolved guilt within spiritual, moral beliefs. Voice warning about spirits, fear of the dead, ancestral connection. The voice warning about seeing saint spirits reflects a deep-seated fear of confronting death, ancestors, or perhaps past actions. The disappearance of the woman shows that once confronted with moral, spiritual fear, desire dissolves into isolation. The grandfather figure, unresolved grief, anger, identity crisis. Seeing your dead grandfather yet denying it's him indicates unresolved grief, but also a struggle with accepting mortality or ancestral legacies. The anger you feel, screaming, "Who are you?" shows internal conflict, perhaps feelings of abandonment, betrayal, or a fear of becoming what he was. The kitchen, a place of nourishment, family gathering, becomes a stage for confronting ancestral shadows. People don't believe you, isolation and inner struggles. The childhood friend and preacher symbolize external validation. People you expect to believe or understand you, but they don't. Their disbelief reflects feelings of isolation in your personal struggles. Maybe people in your life don't see or understand what you're going through emotionally, spiritually. The bleeding tears, shame, empathy, emotional breakdown. Finally, when you physically confront the old man and his tears become blood, it's the climactic moment of realization. Blood as tears suggests immense pain, perhaps shame, guilt, or emotional wounds, yours or passed down through family. Your shock and screaming indicate a breaking point where your conscious mind couldn't process the emotional intensity, triggering your awakening. Core themes of the dream: desire versus guilt, physical instincts conflicting with spiritual moral expectations, fear of death and the unseen, unresolved grief, fear of ancestral spirits, mortality, isolation in personal struggles, feeling misunderstood by friends, community, or self, seeking identity and reconciliation, confronting parts of yourself passed down through family or buried in shame, personal reflection. Questions: are you currently struggling with feelings of guilt or temptation? Do you have unresolved emotions about your grandfather or family heritage? Do you feel misunderstood or dismissed when trying to express deep feelings to others? Are you confronting fears about mortality, spirituality, or identity?